one of my favorite things though is the unknown. Like the absolute best part of my, because everything's always changing.
Hmm.
Like we couldn't do the things we're doing today on the hardware we had back when Alex and I were working together.
Oh, not at
It
all.
just wasn't remotely possible. I mean, the idea that everybody would have like 8 to 16 to 32 cores sitting on their desktop. I mean, it's absurd. What kind of craziness is that? Um, so now, right, like for New World, I am working on facial animation,
Hmm.
and in particular, last year we took it upon ourselves to devise a way without direct animator involvement to lip sync 8 languages and several thousand lines per language.
Wow.
Um,
That's
and
impressive. Hmm.
Thank you. And it looks really cool. The system we came up with, we reuse poses across all our heads. We have a phoneme driven system. Phonemes are facial shapes that correspond to sounds for speech. There's far fewer of these than there are, like, varieties of words, and it's just easy to compose animation out of these poses.
Hmm.
And we use a machine learning toolkit called the Montreal Forest Aligner, and we allow that to parse all of our audio data into timing and phoneme information, and then we apply that retroactively across all of our characters. Um,
Technology is
it's
so
kind of
great.
nuts. Yeah, it really is. It
Yeah.
really is, and machine learning in particular is super exciting right
Right.
now.
So I understand everything you're describing, right? But can you kind of explain what the old process was and why this innovation is relevant and important?
Well, so I don't. Not many games try to lip sync everything, especially not in the MMO space.
Yeah.
If you look at, for example, I think the best on the market right now is probably Cyberpunk 2077
Yeah.
for facial animation, and they hired an entire external company to just handle that for them,
Wow.
and with good reason. It's complicated. It's finicky, and they wanted extremely high fidelity. We also want extremely high fidelity, but we felt it was better to roll our own. So here we
Mm.
are.
What is fidelity?
Quality,
Ah,
um, as opposed to flappy jaw,
Yeah.
got it.
like being able to actually see the mouth deform and to have the character give a convincing performance.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And the reason single player games and fighting games to some extent can get away with this is they have absolute control over everything that's on screen.
Hmm.
We talked about bone limitations and upgrading the characters earlier. At one point, the characters in New World had no facial bones at all, zip, because we couldn't get the performance we wanted with that number of bones, and we
Hmm.
didn't have our LOD system complete, level of detail system, completely sorted out. Um, but over time, we were able to get those facial bones back in there, and it was decided that it was a good thing to attempt. In an MMO, like we said, we don't have control over every person that's going to wander into your scene, especially in towns and places. I'm sure Alex remembers that floating city that had
I
all the
do.
performance issues if you
Dalaran.
looked at a particular bauble. um,
Because
crowd control can be tricky, and
Hmm.
it's it's so that performance balance is always an issue.
Hmm.
Um, but in the old days, the flappy jaw thing was the bulk of games. That was the most anybody did, unless they're extremely cartoony or a fighting game.
Hmm.
Because in a fighting game, you get to spend all of your budget on 2 characters.
yeah,
That's awesome.
and so before, if you wanted lip syncing, you have to take that English clip and you have to hand animate ah, e, oo, eh, o on each individual letter to make it look like your mouth is syncing, so you don't look like this as I talk like this and try to basically, right. So,
Yeah,
what the machine learning that you've built allows it to kind of go over those audio files in each language and map, oh, which letter is the closest there, and so it does those motions right, such that it looks like the word or right, without actually having to go through and hand blend between all of them.
correct. I estimated for me, it's about a day per animation. For somebody that does this professionally, they can maybe get two in a day doing it by hand like
Yeah.
that. It's subtle and it's painstaking. And for the number of lines and the number of languages we have, it's about 30 years worth of work for
Wow.
a single person.
Wow.
And how much does the machine learning bring that down to?
I can process the entire data set in an afternoon.
Wow.
So
30 years
So
to 4 hours or 5 hours.
exactly.